everybody, welcome back to another video with me. I'm Nikki if you're just joining me for the first time. If you are returning, welcome. I'm glad you stopped by again. Today we're making a fun summer project. All right, spring, summer. It's hot where I am, so but for the rest of you, I'm helping you before it gets warm. We're making bucket hats today. I love me a good hat. I don't care if it's a baseball cap that I toss on. I don't care if it's a bucket hat. I love a good hat. Yeah, so we're gonna jump right in. All right, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do, let's work on the lining. The lining. You have pieces that look wide, okay, and almost circular. And then I'm going to call this the happy face. You see that? When we're sewing the pieces that we're going to connect, we want to work with them when they're like the happy face, like the smiley face. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do, right sides, let's take the one with the wider one, the wider, shorter piece. Right sides together. Just checking out where my right sides are. Okay, right sides together. And what we want to do on both sides, we want to sew down both sides, left and the right. Okay. And I'm going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I have noticed with the pattern that I'm using that a large actually I really need those. Okay. I have noticed with the large that I'm wearing in the picture, the large, surprisingly, is a little loose for my head. But, just so that you know, in terms of fitting, I feel like the medium would be too small. I have a big forehead, if you can't tell. But not only that, I have curly hair when it's down, so I think I'm gonna stick with the large instead of playing around with the seams and using a smaller side. Okay, so you should have something that looks like this right now. Okay, what we're going to do now is we want to take this portion. So we have the brim and we have the band. Smiley face here. Smiley face is the brim of the hat. Let's put pretty sides together. Okay, put your pretty sides together. And we're going to do the same thing that we just did with the band of the hat. We are just going to connect these two pieces on both ends by sewing down on each side. Okay. Again, I'm going to be using the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, here's a thought for you, okay, in case you do not know. When doing the hat right now, I am using straight stitches, okay, at this moment. But when you sew something that needs to go on your head, like a headband, or the portion that we're going to be doing a little later, you will want to use zigzag stitching. Zigzag stitching, when it comes to pants or skirts, it allows for stretch. Okay. We're going to take the brim portion of the hat, and what we want to do is connect that with the band portion of the hat. This is the brim right here, and this is the band of the hat. Okay, we want to connect So this is our band. We want to connect this right now onto the brim for the lining. We're going to do that by lining up these seams and pinning right sides together. Right sides. What I'm doing, hold on. Where's my bottom? Okay, hold on. Rah, just making sure of something. Okay, right sides. The smaller portion of your brim, of your band, if you look at it, okay, this portion on the top is smaller. It's smaller than the bottom portion, okay? That's how you know how you're going to connect it to your brim here. So the band has to connect here. The wide portion has to connect onto the top portion of the brim. Okay. So here we go. I'm putting right sides together. And I'm going to pin at the other seam first before I pin all around. This will let me know how much stretch I have. Okay. It's also important that when you start cutting your fabric, because you need to actually wear this product, make sure that you're cutting it on the stretch portion. If you don't know about sewing on the grain, that's a whole nother video, but you want to be aware of which way you're cutting your fabric. Okay. I'm going to pin all around, and all I'm doing is taking those edges, lining them up. Don't get scared that it's a circle. Just line up your edges and go all the way around. So you see, by the time I got back to the seam right here, you see that? It's right there. It's lined right up. You want to make a conscious effort. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to the way you're cutting your fabric for the hat as well. Because you don't want your pattern, you don't want to have upside down pieces if you're using a pattern. I'll show you what I mean when I show you what outer fabric I chose to do the hat with for this tutorial. We'll get to that. We're just taking care of that tedious stuff right now. Okay. Okay, don't worry that it seems like one portion is larger than the other, because it's not. It's just that it's curved. So you see that? Everything is lining up perfectly. Anything circular, I'll definitely pin. I won't try to wing it. All right. See, that's good right there. All ready to sew. I'm going to start at the seam. And what you want to do is sew all the way around. It's going to look like... well, it's pinned now. You'll see it in a minute. I'm going to start at the seam, and we're going to go all the way around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. At this point, let me just show you something before I start. At this point, because I'm just sewing this area right here, I'm still going to sew with a straight stitch. You know what? I'm going to use a zigzag there. It's just that I know this is big for me right here. If you're in between sizes, like let's say a medium or a large, I would definitely go with the zigzag stitch because it's going to help it stretch. But this large is actually big on my head. So, but yeah, zigzag stitch will help it stretch if you need to, because you don't want to pop your stitches when putting this on your head. I'm I'm gonna definitely use the zigzag stitch when I put on the headpiece. No doubt about it, the crown part. So I am just readjusting. When I do circles, small circles, I normally suggest shortening your stitch length. This is a wide circle because it's a hat. So I'm not going to suggest that you shorten your stitch length because it is very wide. But on other circular items, I would definitely say shorten your stitch length. Back to the beginning. All right. This is what we have right now. See this? That's what we have. Now what we want to do for the lining is we want to add the top part of it right here. We want to add on our head part. Okay. The pattern that we're making is going to be reversible. So you can actually, depending on whatever fabric you put inside of here, you could wear it both ways, just so that you know. Okay, pretty side to pretty side. Let's see. This is my pretty side. A little trick that I did, I folded my circle piece in half. And when I folded it in half, I then used that to, that's the pretty side. I then used that to line up to pin towards my seams. Okay, very helpful because obviously you don't have a line, but I wanted to ensure that I evenly pin the crown portion. And I am definitely going to use a zigzag stitch at this part because when I do have my hair down, I love, you know, going to the beach and things like that. And I will definitely toss on one of these hats because I love wearing these to block the sun. So I'm gonna need a little extra room for my curly hair. Okay, and you want to make sure that you are giving some stretch room. Almost done. So go ahead, pin all the way around. I'm going to start back here at the seam. We use a zigzag stitch going all the way around. I'll remove that pin right there. All right. So the zigzag stitch, if you're using a brother, well, anyway, I'll just show you. I was going to tell you what number it was, but it'll be different on all of our machines. Not, you know, just depends on what you're using. The reason I love baseball caps normally is because you can adjust the size of your baseball cap. But some bucket hats are, you know, are one size fit all, which is not true at all. One size. So I'm not afraid to admit I get a big forehead. I'm just lining these curves back up. When you get to the back to the beginning, just make sure you overlap where you started a little bit. I'm not too concerned with my little stragglies right there. That's the inner part of the lining. So this is what we have right now. We're going to prepare the outer portion of the hat. You can use, you know, home decor or like a canvas fabric if you want to. But, you know, I just prefer to line it with the interface, which is what I've listed for you to use. You can also use Decoville if you wanted to make the hat sturdier at the edge. But when it comes to me shoving a hat inside of my bag, I don't want something like that. I just want it to be flexible, and using the apparel interface is enough. We're going to follow the same exact steps in order to create the outer portion of the hat. Now, this is what I was talking to you about patterns. You want to make sure when you cut the patterns that you cut them the right way so that they're all facing the same way. And take a look at this. So here is the hat, right? So this is where you have to know the shape of when you're cutting out the pattern, know the shape of the hat. Because look at the shape now of my icons here. If I would have cut this upside down, you know, if I look at the shape, if I would have cut it, because the pattern is cut on the fold, if I didn't know which direction the hat goes in, like the way the hat forms, I could have had upside down buildings, icons. So just pay attention to that when you're cutting, depending on, you know, what you're using. I saw a really cute pineapple hat. And imagine if you cut upside down pineapples. Right sides to right sides, pretty sides together. Okay, I'm starting with the brim of the hat. And then we'll go to the band. No specific order, just, you know, sew down each side again. We're going to, oh, I'm still on zigzag. Okay. We're going to follow the same exact steps. There's no specific order that you need to do in order to connect these. So just to do something different, what I'll do is I'll start off now connecting the head portion onto the band, and then I'll connect it to the brim, just to, you know, show you another way to connect it. Okay, but there's no process that you need to connect, you know, band to brim and then top. Okay, I'm going to fold this over the same way that I did with the lining piece, just to get that middle, and it just helps me pin. Where is that fold? There it is. The apparel interface it's not flimsy, it's thin, but when you put it on, it's a nice thickness. Okay, and now I'm gonna line up that other side. I have it, yep, it's lined right up with my seam. Okay, go ahead and pin around. I won't do as much pinning this time. I just wanted to pin to show you how to do it if you are not used to pinning circular pieces. All right, ready to roll. I'm starting at the seam. And I'm using that zigzag stitch, of course. I wonder if, let me see. Not just the same building on that side. I was just checking to see if I could possibly line up a different icon at the point where I cut. Okay, for my own purposes and nothing to do with the sewing. Pinning these seams first. It will help you out, and you can just turn the seams the opposite way as well. It will help reduce the bulk when you are when you're wearing it, so it doesn't feel bulky on your head. The fabric at this point is so easy to maneuver because of the apparel on it. It made it a little thicker as opposed to the lining. If you want to, you can put interface on your lining, but you really don't need it unless you want the hat really stiff. Then it'll almost be like a boat hat. So I'm stretching this out a bit. Here we go. I'm starting at the seams. Right sides together, and I'm just separating those seams so that they go in different directions. Oh, you could reuse your denim jeans and make a nice denim one. That's what you do with your old jeans, ladies. Save the thigh portions and make a hat. Using a straight stitch versus a zigzag, personal preference, but if you need the stretch to get you, if you're in between sizes, definitely utilize that, that zigzag. Fancy hot by this point. Look at that. I guess if you weren't using something, I don't know, if you were using a fabric that didn't require lining, I mean, like denim, unless you want to see the under part, unless you want to see that, like the raw edge of the denim underneath, I guess you wouldn't have to line it. But all right, what we're going to do is take the linings. We want to put the pretty side of your hat or your lining, whatever. We want pretty side to match the pretty side. Okay, and we're going to place it on to line up those seams. So pretty side to pretty side. Go ahead and pin. All right, we're ready. So we're going to sew all the way around the bottom, around the edges. You're going to leave a portion, like I said, open so that you can turn this thing right side out. And yeah, we're on our way to finishing this. Okay, go ahead all the way around. Straight stitch. Had to switch the machine back. Going to finalize this by flattening it out so that we can put a top stitch around this whole thing. Okay. The reason we want to roll it is so that it gets that lining underneath. We don't want to see it. The only thing we want to see on this outer portion is the outer fabric itself. Sometimes when you do curves, circles, you need to snip all the way around. We don't need to snip for this here because it's a wide circle as opposed to, and the hat is being floppy as opposed to us needing that definite shape. Okay, this is looking really good. With wide circles, you can control the curves. Gotta iron that lining down again underneath. Okay, nice. The 1/4 inch seam allowance allows the fabric just to fit underneath. It just folds in nicely. You don't have to do a lot of work. All right. Let's go ahead, and that's me just going extra over the beginning. Let's go ahead and top stitch all the way around using 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So it's going to give it a final look, but it's also going to close up that hole. And of course, I'm going to start at the seam. I can see some of my thread peeking through right there. I'm going to leave that hole until I get back over there. I'm going to start on the opposite side of the seam. We're going to do another top stitch, but here is something you can consider. So when the hat is looking like this, you can choose to use your foot to create additional rows of lines on your brim. Some people like that look with, my husband has one of those hats, and so like around 1/4 of an inch spaces to have continuous circles stitching going around. I'm not sure what function that plays, just like it just, I don't know, but I have seen them. My husband has one of those hats. I'm not doing it on this hat. I'm going to go up and grab right here along this stitching, along this line here between the brim and the band. I'm going to put a top stitch on the bottom of the band area. All this is going to do is help so when it's washed, the material stays together right here inside so it doesn't flop around inside. Starting right here at the seam. And I want to make sure that inside the fabric is flat. I'm lining up my guide marker with this portion of the fabric, with the separation of the fabric, okay? And again, it's just going to hold down the fabric inside. so that when it gets washed, there's just structure to the hat. And all I'm doing, I'm using my other hand in here to just push the fabric out as I sew it. We have a completed hat. All right, and just cutting off my snippers. That's all. Look at that. Pretty spicy. I like it. So I guess at this point, when you have, you can look and see, you can put your seams on the side and just use the front as a front. This is what I was talking about. You could put a snap right here if you wanted to. You can put a flower on it if you want to, or you can just wear it plain. Decide whatever you want to do. I don't know. What else can you put? Some other kind of embellishments. But, if you choose a fabric that's busy, I think the fabric will speak for itself. So go and make yourself some pretty cool hats ready for summertime. Okay, protect that head. I'll see you back here for the next video. All right. Thank you for stopping by. Bye, guys.